It's a M and you're staring at the ceiling. Your phone is face down. Your eyes are wide open. Your brain is doing that thing where it replays a conversation from 4 years ago on a loop. You assume something is wrong with you, but the real answer is far stranger. For most of human history, waking up in the middle of the night wasn't a malfunction. It was the plan. Picture a village with no electricity, no streetlights, no glowing screens, just darkness, thick and total, the kind you almost never experience. Now, the sun goes down, the fire gets lit, and a few hours later, most of the people around that fire open their eyes, not because something woke them, because their bodies were built to wake them. Historian Roger Eckerk spent years digging through diaries, court records, and medical texts from pre-industrial Europe, and he found something on almost every page. People described a first sleep and a second sleep, two distinct blocks of rest, split by an hour or two of quiet wakefulness in the middle of the night. This wasn't rare. It was so normal that nobody bothered explaining it. It was just what night felt like. So, what did they do during that gap? They talked, quietly, in the dark, next to whoever they slept beside. They thought. They prayed. Some got up and tended the fire, or stepped outside to check the sky. Some just lay there, half awake, turning the day over in their minds. It was, by several accounts, one of the only calm, unhurried windows in an otherwise exhausting life. Then, around 1 or 2 in the morning, they drifted back down into a second sleep that carried them to dawn. 2 sleeps, not one, and it lasted for thousands of years before anyone thought to question it. Eckerk found the phrase, first sleep, tucked into more than 500 references, spanning centuries across France, England, and Italy. It showed up in court testimony, medical manuals, even prayer books with devotions meant for that quiet hour. None of these sources treated it as unusual. They treated it like lunchtime, a fixed, unremarkable feature of the night. Here's where it gets stranger. This pattern didn't start in candlelit cottages. It's old. Much older than farms, much older than fire pits with roofs over them. Sleep researcher Jerome Siegel and his team traveled to study 3 groups living without electricity today. The Hadza in Tanzania, the San in Namibia, the Semaine in Bolivia. Communities whose nights still look, in some ways, like the nights our ancestors lived through for hundreds of thousands of years. What they found broke a lot of assumptions. These groups didn't sleep in one unbroken block, either. Their sleep was fragmented, flexible, responsive to temperature and light and each other. Someone would stir, add a log to the fire, murmur something to a neighbor, then settle back down. Nobody was anxious about it. Nobody called it insomnia. It was just sleep, doing what sleep does when nothing artificial is pushing it into a single rigid shape. Siegel's team also measured something you might not expect. Despite the fragmentation, despite going to bed hours after sunset instead of right at dusk, these communities showed almost no reported insomnia. Not a single case matching the anxious, clock-watching, dread-soaked experience so common in industrialized countries. Their sleep was lighter, patchier, more interrupted by modern standards, and yet almost none of them felt sleep-deprived. That's the detail worth sitting with. Fragmented sleep and suffering aren't the same thing. They just usually travel together in your world. They didn't have to travel together in theirs. So if broken sleep is that old, that widespread, that unremarkable to the people living it, why does waking up at a m now feel like a crisis? The answer isn't in your brain, it's in your bulb. Anthropologist Carol Worthman has spent decades studying how sleep shifts across cultures, and one thread runs through nearly all of her work. Light is the master switch. Before artificial light, night meant near total darkness for 8, 9, sometimes 10 hours. Human bodies evolved inside that darkness. Melatonin rises early. Sleep pressure builds in long, layered waves, not one flat command to go unconscious and stay that way until an alarm goes off. Then came the candle, then the gas lamp, then the light bulb, then the screen you're probably reading this on right now. Each one pushed bedtime later and compressed the night into a single forced block. Worthman's cross-cultural work found a clear pattern. Less artificial light means more continuous early sleep, fragmenting naturally toward morning. More artificial light means one dense block, with any break treated as an error. Somewhere in that shift, the old rhythm quietly disappeared. Not because it was unhealthy, because factories needed workers who slept in one shift and rose at one fixed hour. The pattern didn't vanish because science disproved it. It vanished because industrial life had no room left for it. You inherited a body built for a slow, dark, 10-hour night. You're asking it to perform inside a bright, 6 or 7-hour one. And when it pushes back at a M, you call it a disorder. Consider the timescale. Electric light has existed for under 2 centuries. Your ancestors had thousands of generations to adapt to darkness. You've had barely 5. Your body hasn't caught up. It's not supposed to have caught up yet. Think about what that middle-of-the-night wakefulness actually looked like before it had a medical name. Quiet, unhurried, no task to complete, no notification to answer, just a body doing exactly what it was designed to do, in a world dark enough to let it. Compare that to your version of AM. Heart rate ticking up, mind sprinting straight to tomorrow's meeting, or the bill you forgot, or a message you never sent. Phone glowing in your hand, feeding your eyes exactly the wrong kind of light at exactly the wrong moment. Same biological event, completely different emotional experience. What changed wasn't your body. What changed was everything around it. Think about the sequence your mind runs through the moment you realize you're awake. First comes surprise. Then comes a fast mental calculation. How many hours until the alarm? How tired will tomorrow feel? What did I do wrong to deserve this? That calculation is modern. It didn't exist before clocks existed to make it possible. Without a clock glowing on the nightstand, there's no countdown to dread. There's just night, unfolding at its own pace, the way it always had. Remove the clock, and remove something else too. Remove the assumption that unbroken sleep is the only correct kind. That assumption feels ancient, but it isn't. It's roughly as old as the factory whistle. There's something almost tender about the old version of this moment. Eckert's research turned up descriptions of that midnight gap as a kind of intimacy, a shared, private hour that belonged to no one but the people lying quietly awake together. Not a symptom, not a problem to fix, just a second, smaller day tucked inside the bigger one. Modern sleep medicine calls broken sleep a red flag. But it's worth asking, a red flag for what, exactly? For a body doing something it's done for hundreds of thousands of years? Or a red flag that the life we've built around that body, the light, the schedules, the screens, is the actual outlier? None of this means insomnia isn't real, or that chronic sleep struggles don't deserve attention. Plenty of sleep disruption today comes from genuine stress, genuine imbalance, genuine health conditions that are worth taking seriously. But some of what gets labeled a disorder might just be an old rhythm surfacing in a world that forgot it was ever normal. So the next time you wake at AM and your mind starts spiraling into why is this happening to me, try a different question instead. What did the people who lived before electric light do in this exact moment? They didn't reach for a screen. There was nothing to reach for. They lay in the dark, let their thoughts move slowly, maybe spoke a few quiet words to whoever was beside them, and waited. Not anxiously, almost peacefully, because they knew, the way you know a season will pass, that sleep would come back for them soon enough. Maybe that's the real difference between then and now. Not the waking itself, the panic layered on top of it. Try just once, treating that gap the way they did. No phone, no light, no urgent. Scroll through everything that could go wrong. Just darkness and the quiet ordinary. Trust that a second sleep is still on its way. You don't need a candlelit cottage to borrow this. You don't need to give up your bed, your mattress, your modern comforts. You just need to borrow the mindset underneath them. Waking is not evidence that something has gone wrong. It's evidence that something very old is still running quietly inside you, unbothered by centuries, doing the same job it has always done. Somewhere back through the generations, someone lay awake at this exact hour in the dark, beside someone they loved, thinking about the day that had just ended and the one that hadn't yet begun. They didn't reach for anything to fix it. They simply waited, unhurried, inside a moment that belonged only to them. That thread runs all the way down to you, whether you've ever noticed it or not. It's a.m., and you're staring at the ceiling, and for the first time, maybe that doesn't feel broken at all. Maybe it just feels human.